Queen Elizabeth II, one of the most enduring and influential figures in modern history, was the longest reigning monarch in British history. Her life spanned nearly a century, witnessing seismic changes in the world, from the decline of the British Empire to the rise of digital technology. This is the detailed story of Queen Elizabeth II's life from her birth in 1926 to her death in 2022. Elizabeth II was born on April 21, 1926, in London at 17 Bruton Street, the home of her maternal grandparents, the Earl and Countess of Strathmore. She was the first child of Prince Albert, Duke of York, the second son of King George V, and Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. Elizabeth was not originally destined for the throne. Her father was second in line behind his elder brother, Edward, Prince of Wales, who was expected to become king and produce heirs of his own. As a child, Elizabeth was known by the family as Lilibet, a nickname she earned because she couldn't pronounce her full name properly. She lived a relatively quiet and private life as a child, primarily at her family's home at 145 Piccadilly, London, and at Royal Lodge in Windsor. She received her early education at home under the supervision of her mother and her governess, Marion Crawford. Her curriculum focused on history, language, literature, and music, as well as practical lessons in horse riding and outdoor life. Elizabeth's life changed drastically in 1936 when her grandfather, King George V, passed away, and her uncle Edward ascended to the throne as King Edward VIII. However, Edward's reign was short-lived due to his controversial decision to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. His determination to marry her caused a constitutional crisis, as it was deemed inappropriate for a king to marry a divorced woman, particularly given his role as the head of the Church of England, which opposed remarriage after divorce. Faced with mounting pressure from the government and the church, Edward chose to abdicate the throne in December 1936, passing the crown to his younger brother, Elizabeth's father, who became King George VI. The Duke of York had been a quiet and reluctant figure, never expecting to take on the burdens of kingship. His sudden elevation to the throne made his daughter Elizabeth the heir presumptive at the age of 10. Her life was irrevocably altered. Elizabeth was now first in line to the throne, and her life as a royal became more public. She began taking on more responsibilities, including accompanying her parents on royal tours and public engagements. During World War II, the young princess took an active role in boosting national morale. In 1940, at the age of 14, she made her first radio broadcast to the children of the nation, offering words of comfort to those who had been evacuated from their homes during the Blitz. As she grew older, Elizabeth took on more formal duties. In 1942, she was made an honorary colonel in the Grenadier Guards and began inspecting troops. She showed a strong sense of duty and service, characteristics that would define her reign. In 1945, towards the end of the war, Elizabeth joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, ATS, training as a driver and mechanic. This was a significant moment, as she was the first female member of the royal family to serve in the armed forces. During this time, Elizabeth began a romance with Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, a distant cousin whom she had first met when she was 13. They maintained a close correspondence during the war, and in 1947, their engagement was announced. On November 20, 1947, Elizabeth and Philip were married at Westminster Abbey. Their wedding was a bright spot in post-war Britain, and their union would last for more than 7 decades, producing 4 children, Charles, born 1948, Anne, born 1950, Andrew, born 1960, and Edward, born 1964. Elizabeth's life took another dramatic turn in February 1952 when her father, King George VI, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 56. Elizabeth and Philip were on a royal tour in Kenya when they received the news of the king's death. At just 25 years old, Elizabeth became queen, thrust into a position of immense responsibility at a young age. She returned to England immediately, where her accession was met with widespread public sympathy and support. Her coronation took place on June 2, 1953, at Westminster Abbey, and it was a moment of great national and international significance. The ceremony was broadcast on television, allowing millions of people around the world to witness the ancient rituals of the British monarchy for the first time. Elizabeth's coronation marked the beginning of a new Elizabethan age, one that would see Britain transition from a global empire to a post-colonial nation. The early years of Elizabeth's reign were marked by political and social change. The post-war period saw the decline of the British Empire and the rise of the Commonwealth, an organization of independent nations that had once been part of the empire. Elizabeth traveled extensively, visiting countries across the Commonwealth, including Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India, and Africa, as part of her efforts to strengthen ties with former colonies. At home, Elizabeth presided over a country in transition. The 1950s and 1960s saw significant social and cultural shifts, including the rise of youth culture, the decline of traditional social hierarchies, and the growing influence of the media. Throughout these changes, Elizabeth maintained a strong sense of continuity and tradition, embodying the stability and permanence of the monarchy. In 1957, she made her first televised Christmas broadcast, a tradition that would continue throughout her reign. The broadcast was a way for Elizabeth to connect with her subjects more directly, and it reflected her understanding of the evolving nature of media and its role in modern life. However, the 1960s and 1970s also brought challenges for the monarchy. The royal family faced increasing scrutiny from the press, and there were growing Republican sentiments in some quarters. The monarchy's relevance in a rapidly changing society was questioned, and the royal family's wealth and privileges were increasingly criticized. By the 1980s, the royal family had become a central focus of media attention, and the personal lives were often headline news. Elizabeth's children, particularly Charles, attracted intense public interest. In 1981, Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in a spectacular ceremony watched by millions around the world. However, their marriage soon became troubled, and by the late 1980s, rumors of their marital problems were widespread. The breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage, and their subsequent divorce in 1996, was a painful episode for the royal family. The media's relentless coverage of the couple's personal struggles, as well as the wider problems within the royal family, created a crisis of public confidence in the monarchy. The death of Diana in a car crash in 1997 marked a low point in Elizabeth's reign. The Queen's initial response to the tragedy, which was perceived as distant and detached, sparked public criticism. Many people felt that the royal family had failed to show sufficient emotion in the face of Diana's death. Under immense pressure, Elizabeth eventually made a televised address to the nation, paying tribute to Diana and expressing her grief. This period of public scrutiny marked a turning point for the monarchy, as it had to adapt to the changing expectations of the British public and the media. In the early 2000s, the royal family began to recover from the difficulties of the previous decades. Elizabeth continued to carry out her royal duties with dedication, and the public's perception of the monarchy gradually improved. The Queen remained a beloved and respected figure, admired for her sense of duty, dignity, and grace. Her reign reached several milestones, including her Golden Jubilee in 2002, celebrating 50 years on the throne, and her Diamond Jubilee in 2012, marking 60 years as Queen. Both events were met with widespread public celebrations, reaffirming the monarchy's place in British life. Elizabeth also oversaw significant changes within her family. In 2005, Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles, a relationship that had long been controversial. However, public opinion towards Camilla softened over time, and the marriage was seen as a sign of the royal family's evolving approach to tradition and modernity. In 2011, Elizabeth witnessed the wedding of her grandson Prince William to Catherine Middleton, an event that symbolized a new era for the monarchy. The couple's popularity, combined with their modern approach to royal life, helped revitalize the monarchy's image. In 2015, Elizabeth became the longest reigning monarch in British history, surpassing the record set by her great-great-grandmother Queen Victoria. Her reign had seen profound changes in British society, from the end of the empire to the rise of digital technology, yet Elizabeth remained a steadfast and stabilizing presence throughout. Despite her advancing age, Elizabeth continued to carry out her royal duties well into her 90s. However, her workload began to decrease in the later years of her reign. Queen Elizabeth II began to scale back her royal duties as her health became more of a concern. Her son, Prince Charles, and other senior members of the royal family took on many of her official responsibilities, representing her at various state functions and public events. Nonetheless, Elizabeth remained deeply committed to her role, continuing to carry out ceremonial duties and attending important national events when possible. A significant personal loss occurred for the Queen in 2021 with the death of her beloved husband, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Philip passed away on April 9, 2021, at the age of 99, just 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. His death marked the end of a remarkable 73-year marriage, during which Philip had been a constant source of support and companionship for Elizabeth. His funeral, held under strict COVID-19 restrictions, was a somber and poignant event. Images of the Queen sitting alone during the service, due to social distancing rules, touched the hearts of millions around the world. Despite her grief, Elizabeth remained composed and dignified, continuing to fulfill her duties as monarch. In 2022, Queen Elizabeth celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years on the throne, a milestone that no other British monarch had ever reached. The Jubilee celebrations, held in June 2022, were marked by public events and tributes, both in the UK and across the Commonwealth. Despite her declining health, Elizabeth made several public appearances during the festivities, including a memorable appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, where she was greeted by adoring crowds. Her final public appearance was in September 2022, when she formally appointed Liz Truss as the UK's Prime Minister at Balmoral Castle, Scotland. This marked a significant departure from tradition, as the ceremony typically takes place at Buckingham Palace, but her health had necessitated a more convenient arrangement. It was a testament to her lifelong dedication to her constitutional duties, even in her final days. Queen Elizabeth II passed away on September 8, 2022, at the age of 96 at Balmoral Castle. Her death was met with an outpouring of grief from around the world. Her reign had spanned 7 decades, during which she had witnessed profound changes in the UK and the world. She was a symbol of stability, continuity, and service, admired for her unwavering commitment to her people and her duty. In the days following her death, tributes poured in from world leaders, public figures, and citizens. Her state funeral, held on September 19, 2022, was a moment of national mourning and reflection, as millions gathered to pay their respects. Leaders from across the globe attended the funeral, underscoring the Queen's significance on the world stage. Queen Elizabeth II was laid to rest beside Prince Philip at the King George VI Memorial Chapel at Windsor Castle, reuniting with the man who had been her closest companion throughout her life. The legacy of Queen Elizabeth II is profound and far-reaching. She reigned during a period of immense change, navigating the decline of the British Empire, the transformation of British society, and the challenges of modern media and public scrutiny. Throughout it all, she remained a constant and stabilizing presence, embodying the values of duty, service, and tradition. Her reign saw the monarchy adapt to the changing world, from the early years of post-war austerity to the rise of the Commonwealth and the digital age. Elizabeth modernized the monarchy while maintaining its essential traditions, ensuring its survival and relevance in the 21st century. Elizabeth's dedication to her role and her people was unparalleled. Her sense of duty never wavered, and she carried out her responsibilities with dignity, grace, and a steadfast commitment to the constitutional role of the monarchy. She served as a unifying figure for the British people and a symbol of continuity in times of national and international upheaval. In the years to come, Queen Elizabeth II will be remembered not only as the longest reigning monarch in British history, but also as one of its most beloved. Her reign defined an era, and her legacy will endure for generations. Now my friends, you know who was Queen Elizabeth II. If you like the story, just hit the like button, and also if you love this type of real stories, just click the subscribe button. Now let's take a leave and again meet at another interesting story. Up to that time, goodbye, have a nice day my friend.